Hey guys, so you ready for today's August 7, 2020, 8:01 p.m. Central Time. So this is video 2 of my exclusive series talking about Joe Biden's platform, known as his vision on his website. I'm jumping ahead to the section that is called End Gun Violence Epidemic. And I'm going to show you the links and all this stuff. Now, any politician who pushes gun control, regardless of party, is mainly banking on people not knowing current law, okay? Not knowing what's currently available, and scare tactics. And it's very easy to do that because there's a lot of gun laws. There's a lot of different components to firearms, depending on the type of firearm. And there's a lot of historical information that is a current law but happened years ago. And there's agencies, that deal with certain things, what the FBI does, what the ATF does, stuff like that. So there's a lot of components when it comes to gun laws and attempting gun control. It's very easy to get someone behind gun control. For example, my mom thought, until I explained it, that as they use the term assault rifles, assault rifle is an automatic, okay? It is not a semi-automatic, it's an automatic. Those were banned in 1986. Those are rare, very rare, and they are regulated through the ATF. She thought I owned a few. She thought it was a regular occurrence. So she didn't know the difference between a semi-automatic and an automatic. Why didn't she? Because she has no interest in firearms whatsoever. She knows nothing about how things function. She doesn't know anything. So there's many, many people out there that are those people. And so when you say that there's a gun violence epidemic going on, you want to do all these things that sound all nifty and fuzzy and warm, it's easy to have them jump on board. As most of you know, a lot of you know, and unfortunately it's not on this channel, I was obsessed with covering the Obama administration. And what Biden has done here is somewhat plagiarize what Obama attempted to do and did not succeed, or did succeed and the Trump administration overturned, and so he wants to turn it back, and such and such and such. So I know everything that is in this document. I know exactly what he's referring to, how accurate it is, and how inaccurate it is. So that's something that you probably won't get anywhere else due to my obsession. So he says here, for example, as a result of this effort, okay, after Sandy Hook, Obama-Biden administration took more than 24 actions, including narrowing the so-called gun show loophole, increasing the number of records in the background check system, and expanding funds for mental health services. That is 100% historically inaccurate. The Obama administration barely got anything done the way he attempted to. Surely did not get more than 24. Did not get a dozen, maybe got a handful. They did nothing to narrow the gun show loophole, and what they did with increasing records in the NICS, which is National Instant Criminal Background Check System that goes through the FBI before you can buy a firearm. They gave grants, which happens every Congress. This is nothing new. Gave grants to states to incentivize them, basically bribe them, to put records into NICS. Because that's the problem with the NICS system, if you really want to go down to it, is it's missing a lot of records. And that's due to state, local levels either not having the resources to do so. They have issues with their own systems, whatever the reasoning may be. Okay? The NICS background system is not 100% there and accurate. So increasing the records of background check system, they did not do. All they did was give grants to states, which happens every Congress, and expanding funding for mental health services. Obama did get What he did is he did a rule change. This is the thing. A rule change, I'll explain very quickly, is a way to get around Congress. You get an agency. This particular one was HHS, Health and Human Services, created a rule saying that basically the Obamacare plans that went through the government website, doesn't mean Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff, no private plans, just the Obamacare stuff that you had to get on through healthgovernment.com, whatever it is, I don't know. I'm not on it. It had to include mental health services in all the plans, gold, silver, bronze, and whatever else may exist. He did get that. It was a rule change through HHS. It went to the public. Public ignored it for comment, and then they enacted it as a final rule. So he did get that done. Biden wants to plagiarize Obama's way of doing things too, meaning all rule changes and getting around Congress. A lot of things he wants to do in this document would absolutely require Congress to do. Some of it he could do through executive order, which would be very controversial and quite unconstitutional. So we're going to go over it here. There's kind of a lot here. I'm just going to say the headlines. I'm not going to go into detail as to every paragraph, okay? Hold gun manufacturers accountable. In 2005, then Senator Biden voted against it's called PLCAA, which is Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And it says, basically, what he says it's, lobbying, blah, blah, blah. What it does is it protects manufacturers from being sued for any type of criminal activity. So that is current law, and many people want to, and I'll just say it specifically, Democratic Party want to overturn that. So they, just pick a company out there, Springfield, whatever. If someone uses their gun to kill someone, cause any type of damage, the person who is hurt can go after the gun manufacturer. It's very illogical to do. The likelihood of overturning PLCAA is pretty small. It has come out in the last two Congresses. They have died in the Judiciary Committee. Get weapons of war off the streets. Again, he wants to enact the 1994 assault weapons ban, but he gets specific as to what he wants to do. Part of this is illogical, would never happen, and I'll explain why. Ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Okay. And for those of you who don't know what a magazine is, a lot of people call it a clip. It's what holds the rounds or the bullets in a firearm, okay? Regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act, which is NFA, okay? This would be very difficult to do and almost impossible to enact, okay? And I'll tell you why. It says currently the National Firearms Act requires individuals possessing a machine gun, okay, silencers, and short-barreled rifles to undergo a background check and register those weapons through the ATF. Due to these requirements, such weapons are rarely used in crimes. As president, Biden will pursue legislation to regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the NFA. The NFA goes through the ATF, right? You have to go through a lot to get an approval. Not only do you have to pay for a tax stamp, and I'm not sure exactly what the cost is. It may be different for different items. You have to pay for it. People are waiting months. There are backlogs. There are millions of what they call assault weapons, which are like AR-15s, AK-47s, which are actually semi-automatic rifles. There are millions of them. Millions. It is illogical and impossible for this to happen. Just throwing that out there. Buy back the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in communities. Pretty self-explanatory. Reduce stockpile of weapons. In order to reduce stockpile of firearms, Biden supports legislation restricting the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to one. There is some legislation out there already that you can only purchase so many rifles. Like on the border states, when I was in Arizona, you could only purchase like 3 rifles within a month. So there's certain things that are out there randomly, okay, in different states. And I think there's something here in Missouri about handguns. Don't know. See? So many laws. So he wants to make that as a federal situation. And then keep guns out of dangerous hands, okay? Require background checks for all gun sales. Currently, different states have different laws. You can do a private sale. So I can sell my pistol to James, okay? Pretending he's not my husband. To a friend, okay? James is my friend. I can sell it to him as a private sale here in Missouri and not have to go through NICS, which is a background check. So he could be a felon, and I don't know. He could have some sort of mental health record through adjudication. I don't know, and I don't care. And I would do a private sale. That's kind of the problem with private sales in that aspect, is many people are selling it to people they don't know. Random people, okay? So that's the issue with private sales. But there's many states out there where it's illegal to do that. So he wants to make it a federal law that you cannot do any private sales, which is the gun show and online sales loophole, quote unquote. It is so inaccurate to call it online sales loophole, period. I'll go into that later. It is called the gun show loophole. In Arizona, for example, people do go to gun shows. They set up a table. They are not an FFL. They will sell you a gun. Okay, private sale. Close other loopholes in the federal background check system, known as the boyfriend loophole. I won't go into that. Reinstate the Obama-Biden policy to keep guns out of the hands of certain people unable to manage their affairs for mental health reasons, which the Trump administration reversed. I did so many videos on this. This is severely unconstitutional and scary because what they did is, using Social Security Administration, they did a rule change and it got enacted. Well, it got finalized. It was going to enact during the Trump administration. Congress, not Trump himself, Congress has to overrule rule changes, period. A president cannot. So Congress chose to use a very specific law that's an administrative something law that happens in the beginning of every Congress. They can't, which is rarely used. They look at all the rule changes that happen that, in the past period, whatever, and they can choose to vote to overturn it. Congress did that in 2017. Thank God. Because this would have taken millions of firearm owners' weapons away from them that are totally legal to own, for them to own, and everything. They'd pass a background check. Everything would be good. They're not felons. Nothing. There would be no reason for them, and even currently, for them to be denied a firearm. Social Security Administration changed it through a rule change, saying anyone on SSA for disability, including those on retirement, actually, and specifically altered the wording of Obamacare in order to enact this. It was very, very crafty. Anyway, it says send to the background check system that holds individuals who are prohibited from purchasing a firearm, blah, 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 blah. Basically, that cannot, and it doesn't really say it here, cannot manage their own affairs, meaning their checks, and this is very, very specific in the rule change. Someone who is on Social Security disability, their wife or husband gets the check versus them because they are considered not able to manage their own affairs for whatever reason. Bam, you are on that list. You are no longer able to own a firearm just because you cannot handle getting that paycheck and paying your bills. Period. End of story. Very simple. There's a lot to it, but that's a very good example. Close the hate crime loophole. This is not a loophole, but it's basically, it says here, who has been convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime or received an enhanced sentence for a misdemeanor because of a hate or bias in its commission. That legislation does exist. It has died in the Judiciary Committee. Close the Charleston loophole. This is adorable. It does not close it. It extends it, and that's funny. The Charleston loophole was named after what happened with that guy that shot up that church. He got the firearm because his background check did not come back in time through the FFL because the FBI was ridiculous. I have no idea. I don't know how it happened to that, but he was able to acquire the gun after 3 days. Okay? That's the law currently. An FFL, Federal Firearms License, gun store, whatever you want to call it, runs your background check. It doesn't come back with a denial or approval. It comes back with a delay of some sort. 3 days can pass without getting a denial or approval. After that, the FFL has the ability, not all of them do it, to sell you that firearm. Okay? That's what they call the Charleston loophole. All he wants to do is extend it from 3 business days to 10 business days. That really doesn't close it. That extends it. I'm not sure what the purpose of the 3 to 10 is, but it would back up the FBI even worse. Close the fugitive from justice loophole created by the Trump administration. I looked this up, and this is completely ridiculous. Basically, the FBI changed through a rule change the definition of fugitive from justice. And it says, will allow dangerous individuals purchase guns. This is their websites, on the wanting the opposite. At the same time, the FBI also explicitly purged all fugitive records from NICS, even including those records that met the FBI's new narrow definition. Now, that last portion would be something you would have to prove. Okay, that's kind of an opinion. So they said that they eliminated 500,000 fugitives from the NICS program. I have no idea where they came up with that number, but what the FBI did is they narrowed the fugitives from justice to basically be fugitives from justice. Not all these little things like running from the cops because you have a warrant, okay, type of situations that were actually being enforced in certain states. That's completely different. So they literally narrowed the definition, like they said, to be a fugitive from justice. So he wants to overturn that and basically shove all those people back into NICS that really don't deserve to be in NICS. But anyway, and this is annoying, end the online sales of firearms and ammunition. Okay, Biden will enact legislation to prohibit all online sales of firearms, ammunition, kits, and gun parts. Basically getting rid of all, like, Arms List is one that's kind of like a Craigslist for firearms. That enforces private sales mostly, but FFLs also advertise on there. It would get rid of all the ammunition sites, specifically like Lucky Gunner, Target Sports USA, those types of places. Primary Arms carries kits and gun parts. They get rid of them. A lot of people seem to think those types of things. A lot of the ammunition, at least in most states, I think California is now different. Ammunition kit gets shipped to your house. Kits and gun parts, except for the receiver, can get shipped to your house. But firearms cannot get shipped to your front door. And that is something that politicians regularly explain as being the current situation. It is not. It is not. I cannot go on Primary Arms and basically build a firearm with a bunch of gun parts and have it shipped to my house and be able to use it. There's still a receiver I need to get. And that part goes to an FFL. From online to an FFL, background checks needed to get that receiver. So if you don't know these terms, you are very confused. But basically, you can't get a firearm shipped to your house, okay? Create an effective program to ensure individuals who become prohibited from possessing a firearm relinquish their weapons. That's kind of self-explanatory. Incentivize state extreme risk laws, which everybody knows are red flag laws. What he means by incentivize is basically give them funds, grants, okay? Which they're kind of doing in Congress now, attempting to do certain things. A lot of states already have red flag laws, and there are many reasons they shouldn't exist. And there have been issues with them already. There have been deaths due to them and everything else. Give states incentivized to set up gun licensing programs. Again, another federal program, okay? Adequately fund the background check system. Again, he says President Obama and Vice President Biden expanded incentives for states to submit records, blah, blah. That happens every Congress. It's just a bunch of funds they give to the states. Addressing the deadly combination of guns, domestic violence, that's already kind of the law as it is. Like if you're domestic violence and you have a order out on you, you're not allowed to own a firearm. But the problem is I don't know if they confiscate your current firearms or not. I don't know how that works. That may be different in different states, but that is already the law. So establishing in this part, okay, is illegal. He couldn't do it yet. Establish a new task force on online harassment and abuse to focus on the connection between mass shootings, online harassment, extremism, and violence against women. That is specifically research, which is illegal currently. Expand the use of, and I'll tell you why, expand the use of evidence-based lethality assessments by law enforcement in case of domestic violence. Again, research. Those could not happen because it's current law in Congress. They pass appropriations bills funding the government. There is a specific line in every appropriations bill for the Justice Department and for Health and Human Services, and I think another agency that gets funded, that no funds from this act can be used for any type of gun control or research. Period. That has been the case for years, and it pisses people off for years. So that's law. He can't just do that. He can't just create a task force to do that because it would be illegal. So Congress would have to overturn that or get rid of it. Not really even overturn it. They just have to pass the Appropriations Act without it in it, and then he could do it. But there's also a federal law that prevents specific research on specific item. Like, it gets complicated. He can't do it. He can't do it. Make sure firearm owners take on responsibility of ensuring their weapons are used safely. This is pretty much impossible. Put America on the path to ensure 100% of firearms sold in America are smart guns. Basically, gun technology that requires fingerprint match before use, which a lot of this stuff would have, a lot. Like, what if someone goes into your house? I mean, if you have a phone that unlocks with a fingerprint, sometimes it doesn't. You got to do it a couple times. So, because it's just, having an issue. Someone's in front of you. You need to protect yourself, and you're using your fingerprint left and right, trying to get your firearm to unlock so you can protect yourself. Really wouldn't work out well, and that is actually an argument against it. But there's a lot of different technology out there from the gun industry that are smart guns, what they call smart guns. None of them have really come to market that I'm aware of. Hold adults accountable for giving minors access to firearms. Not sure this is a real problem, but Biden supports legislation holding adults criminally and civilly liability for direct or negligently giving a minor access to firearms, regardless of whether the minor actually gains possession of the firearm. I don't even know what that means. Require gun owners to safely store their weapons, basically like have a safe at home. Empower law enforcement to effectively enforce our gun laws. Prioritize prosecution of straw purchasers. That's already the case and should be the case and isn't the case because the Justice Department just doesn't do their job. So I'm not sure how he'll prioritize it any differently than when Obama attempted to do it, didn't do it. What Trump's, obviously not preventing it from happening, but they've got other stuff they're doing. So they're going to give them the significant resources. Well, that should have been a long time ago. Straw purchasers are basically when you buy a gun on behalf of someone who cannot own a gun, period. Notify law enforcement when a potential firearms purchaser fails a background check. There are so many problems with that. So many problems. Because when you get a NICS background check, sometimes it could be wrong and flagged so that you are actually able to own the firearm, but you got denied in an error. Okay? So then that FFL reports you to local law enforcement and they follow up with you and come to your house and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of different legislation that's been out there in an attempt to enact this. All died in the Judiciary Committee, but that's kind of the gist of it. Very interesting concept. Require firearms owners to report if their weapon is lost or stolen. Kind of already the law. I believe you're supposed to do that to the ATF or something within 48 hours. So I'm not sure what he's talking about there. Stop ghost guns, which are 3D printing of firearms. Reform, fund, and empower the U.S. Justice Department to enforce our gun laws. That's ridiculous. I mean, they should be doing that anyway. Direct the ATF to issue an annual report on firearms trafficking. Honestly, they do that already. I'm not sure what he's talking about, and it does not say release to the public, even though the ATF was annually releasing that report to the public, but it was so inaccurate that they pulled it. So I'm not sure what he's really talking about there. And then if you scroll down, dedicate the brightest scientific minds to solve the gun violence public health epidemic. Again, can't do it. Prohibit the use of federal funds to arm or train educators to discharge firearms. So basically, teachers cannot be taught anything. Address the epidemic of suicides by firearms. That is another researching situation that they've gotten around that law. There is someone that is researching that. I can't remember who's doing it, but they're doing that already. Supporting survivors of violence in their communities. This is very interesting. I'm not sure why this is something, but it says intimate partners of violence is linked to depression, post-traumatic stress, and other mental challenges among survivors. And they want like first responders to be part of this and make federal funds more available, like make federal programs more trauma informed. Create a network of trauma care centers. Okay. Train healthcare and other service providers in trauma-centered care. I'm not sure how all that would go. I don't know what exists. I'm not part of that. Never had to deal with it. I don't know if a trauma center exists for gun violence. I know that domestic violence against women and everything. I know there's shelters for that. Perhaps that's part of it. I don't know. But anyway, they did have in here the whole 24 actions. When I opened it, it does give the historical White House of Barack Obama. And if you scroll down, it gives you a PDF if you choose to open it and go over and it's very crafty on how it's written because most of this he didn't get done. It's either like we're in the process or blah, 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 whatever. Obama didn't get much done. He did not get much done. More than 24, no, not even close. Not even a dozen. Obama did very specific things through rule changes. Basically nothing got done legislatively through the Obama administration. So that was a long video. It may have been a bunch of jargon for a bunch of people who do not understand firearms current laws or anything else. And I greatly apologize for that. But other than that, I'll move on. This is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great night.